New developments in the leak investigation into the New York Times is reporting about security issues around the new Air Force One gifted to President Trump by the country of Qatar. The Times reports the White House directed FBI Director Kash Patel to oversee the investigation, which led to the DOJ subpoena.
Start here, because he told us how to read this, not a spokesperson, the FBI Director himself, publicly promising that the fake news will find out why soon. That's not the language of a routine national security inquiry. That's a warning. And within hours, 4 New York Times reporters would learn exactly what he meant at their own front doors. Here's what actually happened.
Several reporters who wrote about the security of Air Force One. The Times also reporting the White House's deep involvement in the case came after officials said President Trump was enraged over the coverage of the Qatar.
2 facts in one breath. 1, a $400 million jet gifted by a foreign government flying the President of the United States. 2, the FBI now investigating the reporters who wrote about its security. Hold on to both. The second only makes sense because of the first.
Legally and technically, the judiciary or a prosecutor can subpoena a reporter's records, but they don't. They don't because 99.9% of American leaders recognize that that is a cornerstone.
Note the sequence, not a threat assessment, not an intelligence finding. The trigger, per the reporting, was that the president was angry about the coverage. When the emotion comes first and the investigation comes second, that order tells you what you're looking at.
Because 99.9% of American leaders recognize that that is a cornerstone of our democracy. So again, same old, using the tools of the federal government to go after somebody who's written a story or is doing something that that Donald Trump doesn't like.
That repetition, they don't, is the whole point. The power to subpoena a journalist has existed for a long time. What kept it in the drawer wasn't the law. It was the norm. And norms only hold until someone decides they don't apply to him.
Directly overseeing an investigation into journalists.
Right. So this is all of these, protocol, this is not how any of this is supposed to work. This is this unitary executive theory, this presidency that directs the DOJ, this lack of separation of powers, not how any of this is supposed to work. You see in the reporting that supposedly this investigation was done out of the White House. There's no precedent for that. I mean, just not how any...
The tools of the federal government, that's the FBI. Grand juries. Subpoenas served at your home. Tools built to protect the public. Pointed here at the people whose job is to inform the public.
They'll even say it. And that's what this is. This is more of that. And it's ironic to me because these were the people who said they were free speech absolutists. These were the people who were mad about, supposed COVID censorship. These are the people who are now, celebrating this administration's subpoenaing journalists because why? Really to intimidate them.
She keeps returning to the same phrase, and she should. A leak probe run out of the White House with the FBI director as the president's personal instrument. There's no version of the American system where that's normal. The wall between the two isn't a formality. It's the safeguard.
To intimidate them.
I want to pick up on what she was saying there with you, Hayes, because the Times reports that Patel scuttled a planned trip to Chicago and spent roughly 8 hours at the White House Friday. But to Molly's point, running the investigation from there rather than FBI headquarters, that is a major departure from historical.
Sit with the contradiction. The loudest voices about censorship and free speech are quiet now or cheering as federal agents haul reporters toward a grand jury. Free speech, apparently for me, a subpoena for you.
The Times reports that Patel scuttled a planned trip to Chicago and spent roughly 8 hours at the White House Friday. But to Molly's point, running the investigation from there rather than FBI headquarters, that is a major departure from historical.
This is a fact. Everything else orbits. 8 hours, not at FBI headquarters, at the White House. The person leading a criminal leak probe working from inside the building whose occupant was reportedly enraged by the story. That's the wall coming down in real time on the clock. To be fair, the government has an answer. Reporters aren't the targets, the leakers are, and the meeting was just a routine briefing. Take it seriously. But notice what it doesn't explain, why the director spent 8 hours doing this at the White House, or why the first move was subpoenas to journalists rather than an internal hunt for the leaker. Political leadership frames it as thin skin. Maybe. But strip the partisanship and the structural question survives on its own. Should the machinery of federal law enforcement move this fast against reporters because the president was embarrassed? And this is why press freedom groups, not partisans, watchdogs, are alarmed. Reputational security is the phrase to remember. The claim is national security. The effect is a chilling message to every reporter and every source watching this play out. Read that word again, doorstep. Not a courtroom, not a filing, a knock at the reporter's home on a Friday night. The venue is the message. It's meant to be felt personally. That's the point McCraw is making, and it's hard to argue with. Here's the receipt. The administration's own rules said subpoenas to reporters should be a last resort, narrowly drawn, with advance notice. Agents at the door at night, before any exhausted internal search, is the opposite of that. They didn't just break a norm, they broke their own written standard. So here's where it stands. A jet the taxpayers spent hundreds of millions on, reportedly too exposed for the president to fly home in. Reporters who told you that, now facing a grand jury. And an FBI director who ran the whole thing from inside the White House, promising you'd find out why soon. The government says, trust us, the leakers are the target, not the press. Maybe. But the last safeguard against that promise going wrong is the very thing being subpoenaed tonight. So the question the anchor left open is really a question for you. If agents at a reporter's door doesn't shock the conscience anymore, what will? Tell me in the comments. If you want the receipts before the spin sets in, subscribe and hit the bell.